Good morning and welcome to Breakfast Central. Thank you very much for joining us this Tuesday morning. It's the second day of the holiday and we hope that you're enjoying the festive season and sharing and sacrificing as the season urges. Speaking of sacrifices, we did react yesterday to the president asking us to sacrifice here in Nigeria and share with one another, even though some people have not taken this instruction as they probably intended from the presidency. But we're looking at more statements made by the presidency today, when we head to what Nigerians are saying to Twitter to see what a number of you are saying about some of the big stories. My name is Olive Emodi and you're welcome to the show.
And I am Osaogi Ogbon, welcoming you to a Tuesday morning's edition of Breakfast Central. We hope the next 2 hours we're able to share with you the biggest conversations happening here in Nigeria, in different parts of the country. Cholera outbreak, of course, is still making headlines here in the country. As the Lagos State Commissioner for Health, Akin Abayomi, says that the spread is slowing down, but of course, just a reminder to everyone to please be very cautious with what you consume. Of course, foodstuff and the like. So please, just a reminder to everyone that there has been different analysis, on the cholera outbreak and the current strain, which of course is spreading across Lagos, to let people know exactly what strain it is and, maybe how contagious it is. So we'll definitely bring more information about that as time passes. We also have Dashin Usman, who's joining us with Breakfast Headlines. Good morning, Dashin.
Good morning, Osaogi. Good morning, Olive.
Good morning. Dashin,
yes.
There's so much. First of all, happy holidays. And to our Muslim brothers and sisters who are celebrating this season, we celebrate with you. Even though, unfortunately, what we've seen is as a result of the very turbulent economic times, there's not been as much celebration as there would be in previous, or there have been in previous years. There have been reports of people unable to buy RAM, people having to share, people not even being able to afford it. I spoke to someone and I was asking him, where's my own RAM? And he told me, he said, buy RAM in this day and age, that he can't afford to buy RAM for himself as he typically would before, which is a stark reflection of the reality of a number of Nigerians, a reality that was, encapsulated in the article by the New York Times, where they said that Nigeria has, really fallen into dark times, and the presidency came out to react to it, stating that, it's derogatory and the way that the Western media will typically talk about African continent.
Well, in some way, Olive, you wouldn't really blame the presidency if they're not aware of what is really happening, to the masses. Because while some have been unable to afford the RAM, others actually, having a blast, with, more than one. Because when we actually spoke here about, the economic crunch and, how some people, we don't even know how they're celebrating their holidays and all that. I went out yesterday and I saw people organizing parties, and they had like 1 or 2 or 3 rams to actually, kill, and they shared, even on the streets. The streets, that's when you go to all these ghettos. On the streets, you have them, as much as probably coming together, putting heads together, and buying, a ram and sharing.
As they should, Dashin.
Exactly.
Because that's what the spirit of this season is. The essence of this particular Salah is celebrating the gifts, in the holy books, the gift of the provision of the sacrifice for Abraham. So as they should celebrate with rams. I don't think that that's why the presidency is not aware.
We're talking about the amount and how much it costs. I was speaking with Osaogi yesterday, and one ram actually cost as much as 1.3 million naira. So where did they get all the money to do that?
Are we asking the people where they got the money from? Or the fact that I agree with you that presidency may not maybe understand, but the reason why they will not understand is not because the people are putting their monies together to celebrate as they should, that it's well within their right, but it's because they are completely disconnected from the reality of the people. That's how I see it. They're not affected by the fact that there are some people who don't even have what to eat. They're not affected by the fact that, they can say, sacrifice, tighten your belts, endure, manage. But then we see a lavish display of ostentatious living. That is not, the Nigerian people cannot relate to it.
So 2 things, I would mention is, with the fact that, it's Nigerian culture. It's a part of who we are, that no matter how expensive things are, there would always be Nigerians that can afford them. But it's not a metric with which we used to rate the level of poverty that Nigerians are dealing with. Everybody has had to make adjustments. Electricity tariff moved from 66 to 225 naira. And of course, we still will buy electricity. We will continue to live, in the places that we live. And, our lights will never go off. And that is because we've had to make necessary adjustments to be able to afford electricity. And it's pretty much the same thing now we're talking about RAMs. In every aspect of our lives, Nigerians have had to make adjustments. Even if you sell one RAM for 5 million naira, Nigerians will figure out a way to buy it. Definitely will reduce the number of people who can buy it, but there will be people who can afford, these things. And the presidency, I think I'm tired of us saying that they're disconnected. I don't think they're disconnected, and it's not just the presidency. It's also on the state level, governors. They're not disconnected. They don't care. That's the simple truth. They do not care. They do not care, first of all, and then they also do not even put in any effort to even try to make you believe that they care. They do not hide the fact that they absolutely not care, and that is what happens when you see the presidency knowing how badly the economy has changed since President Tinubu came into office, and yet the conversations that we're having are about spending 21 billion naira on a house. Conversations that we're having from the National Assembly are about considering buying new airplanes for Mr. President. So again, it's not because they're disconnected. They're not disconnected. That is a decent way to put it and give them excuses. They absolutely do not care. And the reason they do not care is because the question, what are you going to do about it? What is the average Nigerian going to do about it? Are you going to recall your senator from the House or your House of Representative member? Are you going to push your State House of Assembly to impeach your governor? No, you're not. So they're not disconnected. They don't care. And they know that they have the next 4 years to hold that position. As long as they won that election, they will hold that position for the next 4 years and then fight for re-election again. And I mean, that's it. So let's stop creating excuses for them, making it seem like, there's some reason, though, they're just so far off living in Aso Rock and they do not understand the realities. They do understand those realities. They don't care. And that's exactly the way that I see it.
So when I say that they don't understand, right, it's not because they're not saying it, but it's because you're not in that position. You're not able to empathize because we had someone who talked about not being able to afford to pay for drivers. You are not in that situation. You don't understand what it feels like to not know where your next meal is coming from. So that is what I mean by...
We walk around every day.
Well...
And this is... Let's bring it to our level now. You walk around every day, you see people at your junction. You see the people that, sell mama put at your junction. You see the average vulcanizer at your junction. The fact that you're not living his reality, having to pump tires at your junction, doesn't mean you cannot tell that he probably is managing just one meal every day. So it's not because, they are not living our realities or the average Nigerian. They don't care.
All right.
I was actually about to say that, when he said that, you walk around, how many of them really walk around? Most of them actually move around with, in convoys. Most of them move around with security. So, even if, you tell them, they really don't understand. I actually agree with Olive on that. They do not understand because no matter how much the inflation or how high the inflation is, it only affects them a little. And they're able to, move on or move away from that. So,
all right, let's move on from that and maybe ask our audience on social media. Do you believe that the current reality that Nigerians are experiencing are as a result of the fact that A, the government doesn't understand, B, the government doesn't care, and C, a mixture of both? Let us know at News Central TV on all social media platforms. We'd love to see your tweets on X. But for now, let's share the top stories we're looking at today.
State as there's more tension over local government chairman tenure extension. And
Bayo Ononuga spills in reaction to the New York Times article. He says Tinubu inherited dead economy.
Also, an ungun man abduct a Catholic priest and parishioner in Anambra State.
And of course, FCT residents express divergent views on free train service is one of the stories we're looking at today.
We'll also be sharing with you what's going on in the newspaper front pages and the major stories making headlines across Nigeria this morning.
And let's begin breakfast headlines in Nigeria, where President Bola Tinubu will on Tuesday depart Lagos for Pretoria, South Africa, to attend the inauguration of President Cyril Ramaphosa. Now, the president's spokesman, Ajuri Ngalale, made the disclosure in a statement on Monday. Ngalale said the inauguration of Ramaphosa follows his re-election as president for a second term. He added that Tinubu will return to Nigeria after the ceremony. To aviation matters, the Nigerian Airspace Management Agency has refuted claims made by journalist David Hundeyin that Nigeria's airspace is not covered by radar. NAMA clarifies that radar stations in Kano, Lagos, Abuja and Port Harcourt are fully operational and undergoing upgrades to enhance air traffic management. The agency also dismisses allegations about poor welfare for air traffic controllers, stating that their salaries and allowances are competitive. Hundeyin had told News Central in an exclusive interview that Nigeria's airspace lacks primary radar coverage. The former Deputy Governor of Edo State, Philip Shaibu, has declared support for the opposition All Progressives Congress candidate, Monday Okpebolo, in the upcoming September 21st governorship election in Edo State. Now, according to Shaibu, the governorship race started with himself, Okpebolo, and Olumide Akpata of the Labour Party. The former deputy governor spoke on the sidelines of the 2024 Father's Day celebration at St. Paul's Catholic Church in Benin City, the Edo State capital. In southern Africa, Zimbabwean police have arrested and charged opposition leader Jameson Timber and more than 70 other people with disorderly conduct over a private meeting held at the weekend. Timber, who took over the interim leadership of the official opposition Citizens Coalition for Change following the resignation of Nelson Chamisa in January, was arrested alongside his son. Timber's lawyer, Agency Gumbo, explained that they have been charged with disorderly conduct and participating in an unlawful gathering and will be appearing in court on Tuesday. Up north, once flourishing and known for its figs, olives and almond fields around Kabao, located some 200 kilometers southwest of Tripoli, are now mostly barren and battered by climate change-induced drought. Now, the area was once green and prosperous until the beginning of the millennium, McCarthy recalled. Kabao, like many villages in the Nafusa Mountains, is primarily inhabited by Amazigh people, a non-Arab minority.
الجهة هذه كانت فيها أمطار ما شاء الله 96 من 86 ل 96 لكن المناطق الداخل طبعا الزيتون الكبير متاع جدودنا يبس لأننا ما فيش أمطار نقص بالذات المربيين متاع الأغنام حتى هم باعوا لأن نظرا من الجفاف والماء لما يرفع لك بوطي لمسافة متاع 50 كيلو 40 كيلو لوطة ب 150 160 كلها باعت أغنامها. طبعا التربية الحيوانية نقص شديد لأن ما فيش الماء وما فيش الأمطار الغزيرة هذه اللي كانت تصب زي السبعينات والستينات.
تأخير الأمطار هو جعل هذا سبب يعني، ولكن نصل من المسؤولين أن يعينوا كل المناطق، وخاصة يعني أنا أتحدث على توفير البنية التحتية لشبكات المياه وتوفير المياه في حد ذاتها. هذا المطلوب من الدولة، ما تخلي المواطن يشقى ويعاني من أجل شاحنة مياه ب 70 و 80 دينار.
طبعا مشكلة المياه تعتبر من أكثر المشاكل المتواجدة في الجبل بصفة عامة وفي بلدية كباب بصفة خاصة، وهذه المشكلة طبعا زادت الإشكالية أكثر بسبب عدم وجود الأمطار والجفاف خلال السنوات.
And that's all on breakfast headlines. Now it's back to Osauge and Olive.
Thank you very much, Dashin, for those very interesting stories there. Of course, seeing the effect of climate change in different parts of the continent, but also interested in seeing the turn of events with regards Philip Shaibu, the former deputy governor of Edo State, now pitching tents with the APC's candidate. Very, very interesting as the election, of course, draws closer. I'm looking forward to more and more. I'm expecting that there will be more drama leading up to the elections. I also saw a question, that someone was asking about. Anyway, I think I want to bring that up on television. But very interesting once again.
All right, well, I think with that, we'd actually have to wrap up now. But then, just before we leave, you talked about Shaibu and, he's supporting APC. There's no loyalty when it comes to politics. That's just it. You've seen a lot of politicians defect at the slightest opportunity. So they're only loyal to themselves. That's all I can say about that.
I mean, like we say, there are no permanent friends or permanent enemies, only permanent interests. Thank you very much, Dashin, for bringing us breakfast headlines. We'll see you much later this morning. All right, we have our top stories to look at this morning. Remember that when we're reviewing the papers, you will be able to call in on the show and share your thoughts on any of the stories. And you can continue the conversation with us on all social media platforms at News Central TV. And we're streaming live on YouTube as well. We'll be right back.
Welcome once again to Breakfast Central. Residents of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, have commended the services of the Abuja Light Rail Train Service, which recently began commercial operations, of course, saying it had not been cumbersome boarding the trains. Some of them, of course, then spoke to News Central correspondents in Abuja, expressing different views on the free train rides by the government, and also saying the burden in running the service might be unsustainable for government. Avaloso Bomano visited the station and brings us this report.
This is the Abuja Light Rail Mass Transit Service. The train, which was recently commissioned by President Bola Tinubu as part of activities to mark the first-year anniversary of the current government, takes passengers from the city center across several train terminals to the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport and is expected to run free till December as promised by the President. The light rail service is expected to reduce the burden of transportation for city residents and also to ensure traffic decongestion within the capital.
With this in place now, at least it will ease the transport, the traffic on the highways.
The train idea is a very good one. It's going to help a lot of people in Nigeria, especially with the hike in transportation. I think taking it for free now to 6 months as announced by the government, I think is a good one.
Now that we have increased it to the end of the year, so by January 2025, definitely, there will be a token to be paid.
I just came to town from Lagos this morning, and getting to the airport, someone told me about the train ride that is free, and then I said, okay, let me give it a try.
Here at the Abuja metro station, as you can see, this is the timetable scheduled for passengers to ensure a free flow of passengers' movement. Now, when you look at the timetable very well, you can see we have different 4 timings here. We have the one of 8 o'clock in the morning, we have the one of 10 o'clock, we have the one of 3:30, and we have the one of 5:30. Then if you look very well here, you look at the stations, we have the Abuja Metro, we have the stadium, we have the Kukwaba 1, Kukwaba 2, Wupa, Idu, Basanjiwa, and the airport. These are the different routes that the train takes. So any passenger who comes, first of all, come to this particular place to see the timetable and know the time he or she ought to follow the train to their various destinations. Some residents, however, criticize the service, saying it does not cater for areas in the federal capital with inaccessible roads.
I think another thing the government needs to do is looking at the areas where people have limited access to good roads, like the Nyanya Maraba Massacres East.
Others think only children should benefit from the free train ride scheme, which runs till December, while adults should pay for the service.
It was fun because it was my first time. They should make it free forever.
They should make it free for children because they also have other investments where they can get money from.
As soon as the passengers are done undergoing security check at the loading bay, then the train official will assemble all of them. They will all converge on this particular point before entering the train. The director of the Abuja metro station says that since the commencement of operations of the light rail service, citizens in their numbers have taken advantage of alternative transportation.
We have recorded over 2,000 passengers from 29 to date. And the
records, indicate different, percentage daily.
Many will be hoping that once the 6 months free train ride expires, its tickets will be affordable for citizens. In Abuja for News Central, Marvelous Oboman.
And of course, the train service continues every now and then. There, might be a few hitches here or there, but I guess I would say it's still a work in progress, and Nigerians will continue to enjoy these bits and pieces of transportation infrastructure. Well, moving on, the police in Kano State has issued a warning to residents following incidents where residents booed both the state governor, Abba Yusuf, and the reinstated Emir Lamido Sanusi. The warning, delivered through a statement by police spokesperson Abdullahi Kiyawa, urges residents to refrain from causing disturbances on the street.
The incident involving Emir Sanusi occurred as he returned from Eid prayers, with residents chanting derogatory words in the vicinity of the Festival Primary School and around Zango areas, according to the news agency of Nigeria. And that's the update we have in Kano State. I mean, you've been warned not to boo. Very interesting updates there. But first of all, why are they booing?
I don't know. I guess they have their reasons, but every Nigerian has, the right to express themselves, freedom of speech, and the Constitution guarantees that. There's many, levels with which your speech is, your freedom of speech is guaranteed in Nigeria. So I don't understand why you're warning anyone, to refrain from booing.
So I think what we need to double check is in the penal code, because there are many things that are in the penal code that are not applicable in the other parts of the country. If booing is an offense, or if it's a crime in the penal code, I'm not sure if also using derogatory words like they said here, what the provisions are. But then it's also a reflection of the fact that maybe a number of them are not satisfied with how the emirship tussle has been handled, and they have their preferred candidate, who would be the Bayero and the other 4 emirs, because now they're booing at Emir Sanusi Lamido as well as Abba Yusuf. Also, what comes to mind is how long it has taken for this matter to be resolved. We've been on it for a while now, and it's actually taking longer. What we felt like, there was the peak of it was when Emir, Bayero, yes. Where Bayero returned into Kano State with the entourage, the security personnel, and everybody thought this weekend is going to be hot, and eventually in the coming week everything will be sorted. But it just feels like they are now all coexisting peacefully, which might not be such a bad thing.
Well, the different details about having 2 emirs in Kano, exist.
It's now going to be more than 2 emirs, because at this point, if you're having Bayero, you're having the other 4 emirs. So it's Bayero, the other 4 emirs.
Emirate councils,
then,
yes.
Yeah.
But my point is, that is a whole different conversation, right? Whatever the reason is that they have chosen to boo either the governor or Emir Sanusi, or both of them, they have the right to do so. If they feel disgruntled or dissatisfied with the way Kano State has been governed by Governor Abba Yusuf, if they feel dissatisfied with the way that the emirate tussle has happened in the last couple of weeks, they have that right to express themselves by booing. There is no law against booing. There's no law against expressing yourself, verbally in Nigeria. I don't think the penal code, like you mentioned, says that you cannot express yourself, against, the governor or against any political authority. So I feel like this is really just, a Nigerian thing. It's only in Nigeria that you will hear of things like this, where people will be warned to stop booing the governor. We're the only ones who say we're in a democracy, but to live like we're in a dictatorship on different levels of government, from federal to state to even the local government. And that's why you're hearing a story like this. But we need to go on a break. We'll continue conversations this morning on Breakfast Central after this short break.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. We begin our conversation this morning in River State. There is tension, it seems, across some of the 23 local government areas in River State as the tenure of the council chairman expired yesterday, June 17th, by midnight. The tension is due to the decision of the local government chairman in the state to remain in office citing the Local Government Amendment Law number 2 of the 2024 by the Martin Amaewhule-led 27 House of Assembly members, extending their tenure by 6 months.
Recall that the law by the lawmakers loyal to the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, empowers council chairmen to remain in office over the alleged failure of Governor Sim Fubara to conduct local government elections. Youths in Degema earlier on Monday occupied the council secretariat, locked the entrance and mounted the front of the gate. They insisted that it would not allow the local government chairmen to remain in office after serving out their tenures. Now joining us is PDP Chieftain Collins Odu and Publicity Secretary Rivers APC Caretaker Committee Chibika Ikenga. But first of all, let's share with you, recent happenings in Rivers State, and then we get into the conversation.
Yes, the young people must know that we don't have any other state other than Rivers State. Like when we were growing up, there was this slogan on Rivers State, love Rivers State or leave her alone. Don't run her down. So you love Rivers State. You should not run her down. Only one man can be governor of Rivers State at a time. We will not have 2 governors. And the people of Rivers State are bigger than Mujahid Okubasari. Rivers State is bigger than any individual. No individual can take Rivers State people for a ride and pocket us. It's not possible. Local government tenure has expired today. They should quietly go home. If they want to seek re-election in accordance with the Constitution, they should go and seek re-election. But there is no tenure elongation in the Constitution. Their position is tenure bound.
Well, once again, joining us is PDP Chieftain Collins Odu and the Publicity Secretary Rivers APC Caretaker Committee Chibike Ikenga. Good morning to you both. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
I'm going to start with Mr. Ikenga this morning. Share with us, what's going on in Rivers State, and I believe that there has been, an address by the Rivers State Governor Sim Fubara this morning, where he has stated that these chairmen, should vacate office, according to the law. But let's get from Mr. Ikenga, first of all, what's going on in Rivers State?
Okay, thank you. I think that broadcast by the governor is misplaced. What that means is that the governor has taken laws into his hands. He has usurped the powers of the judiciary. Take note that the tenure of local government chairman is subject of litigation at the Court of Appeal at the moment. And as at the last time, the Court of Appeal did say that let status quo be maintained and that let no party take any steps to destroying the rest. And further, that the issues of hostilities against any group, by any group, should be halted pending the determination of the suit before the Court of Appeal. So the governor, having taken a step to directing, quote and unquote, to directing that the tenure of local government chairmen, which is subject of litigation, has elapsed. That means that he has pronounced the judgment before the Court of Appeal. And that is antithetical to democratic participation and enshrined in our Constitution. So you understand that the issue here is dictatorship. The issue here is despotism. We have asked that we need peace for development to thrive. And therefore, the helmsman, who is the governor, ought to first take the position of ensuring that there is peace in Rivers State, so that what we yearn for development, we can start. But about 3-4 days ago, you are all aware that the Court of Appeal gave that order. And we have obeyed it as a party. We have kept quiet. We are watching to see that the proper things are done. But the PDP under Governor Sim Fubara is noted for disobedience of court orders, disobedience of laws, and taking laws into their hands. That's
so just to clarify, which court order? I just want to clarify which court order you're referring to, because the news reports say that the court held that the new law was inconsistent with the 1999 Constitution and Section 9 of the River State law, which fixed 3 years for local government chairmen and councillors. It gave the ruling, of course, against the recent extension by the River State House of Assembly Speaker. And of course, this is from Justice D.G. Kyo, who declared the Lagos Local Government Election Law number 2 of 2024, which sought to extend the chairman's term by 6 months, conflicts with the 1999 Constitution. So which one are you referring to? Is there a different judgment that you're referring to?
All the contested positions are interlinked. Tenure of local government chairmen, claimed or alleged defection of House of Assembly members, and laws made by made by the House of Assembly. So all these issues are interlinked, and all of them are before the Court of Appeal.
Yeah, but all of this cannot be under the same court ruling. The court is not going to rule on 2 or 3 or 4 different cases and just ask that they maintain status quo. These are all different cases.
Okay, let me give you a direct response quickly.
Yeah.
The House of Assembly clearly has the powers to make laws for Rivers State, particularly for the structure, organization of local governments. And House of Assembly has gone ahead to extending the tenure of local governments as a result of the failure of the government of Rivers State to conduct local government elections, to replacing those whose tenures ought to have expired as at when due. The government failed. So if all these things are linked, any pronunciation from the Court of Appeal will go to directing the way these things handle. First, local House of Assembly members, one court said they have declared their position vacant by virtue of the fact that they have defected to another party. That is subject of litigation. Another court says by virtue of that defection, alleged defection, they have lost the powers to making laws. And those laws that were made at the time they had allegedly moved to another party, that those laws can no longer count. These are all the issues. And what is one of the laws that was made? One of them is the fact that local government elections.
Sorry that we keep going back and forth. The decision concerning the extension of the local government chairman's seats says that the 1999 Constitution grants them just 3 years. It's not referring to the right or the powers of the Speaker to make the law. That's not what the ruling says. The ruling is not saying that Mr. Amaule can or cannot make the law, whether he's rightfully elected or not, whether he defected or not. That's not what it was talking about. It's talking about the 1999 Constitution, which grants them 3 years. That's what the ruling says.
And the Court of Appeal is looking at a case that has to do with extension of tenure and end of tenure.
All right. Let's bring in Honorable Odu into the conversation. Honorable Odu, we have seen that, I'd like you to also react to what Mr. Akinga has said, but we've also seen that there have been some form of protest. Yesterday, we saw the youths popping up in different parts of the state. We did see them in front of the Secretariat. I believe they're the Gema youths who were in front of the Secretariat protesting, saying that they want to see today if the local government chairman will return to work. They were chanting war songs. Does this maybe imply that the people are in support of Governor Siminalayi Fubara's decision?
Thank you once more for having me. But before I go into that, I'd like to express my dissatisfaction this morning. I am a member of PDP and my colleague there is a member of APC, but unfortunately we'll be talking the same way because the level of lawlessness in my state is getting out of hand. And I really don't think we are happy in our party with the actions of our governor. Like he said there is a judgment that had to upturn the decisions or the law passed by the House of Assembly, and that law now is before the appeal court, being appealed by
the House of Assembly because the judgment by the lower court upturned the law. And as we all know, a situation where a judgment has been upturned but has to do with governance, that the effect of such law does not automatically end, not until it is exhausted in the Supreme Court. So to see youths on the road chanting songs against the local government chairman, procured youths, is quite unfortunate, because I'm expecting that we will obey the tenets of the law, follow the due process until the entire cases are expensed of. So like you said, youths being on the road is not a testimony that people are in support of Governor Fubara. That is not the situation, but only the fact that those who are on the side of the lawmakers, led by Right Honorable Martin Zamewule, are law-abiding. We know the extent of damage that any of these things can cause. No one is a master of violence. So it is not enough to say people are supporting him. But if you want to see the support Rivers people are giving to Martin Zamewule, watch out and let there be an order. Say, go and counter them, and then you see what will happen, whether Fubara has supporters or not.
Also, just to, Mr. Odu, you're a PDP chieftain. Probably you can give us an insight into what the explanation regarding the elections are. Why have there been no local government elections in Rivers State?
Those are failures of the governor. From when that there is an amendment to the laws of the local government done far back December, making it impossible for caretaker to be installed in tenets of the Section 7 of the Nigerian Constitution, wherein it is stated that it is only elected local council members that can be in office. And that is enough time for the governor to constitute his cabinet and be ready for an election. But he vehemently and refused to do all of that and left it till this moment when this will be taken over, when these people are supposed to, their tenure is supposed to elapse. So all of these are the lapses and inefficiencies of the governor, because he was given enough time by the House of Assembly, wherein they said, let them strengthen the efficacy of the Constitution.
I also want, in defense to, is it probably a solid defense that the reason he hasn't been able to conduct local government elections would be the fact that he's been fighting to actually be governor? In the time that he's been in office, it would seem that there has been drama from his time in office up until now between him, former Governor Nyesom Wike, the House of Assembly, the Assembly complex. It feels like every other day there's news breaking about drama in Rivers State. Will that maybe, suffice as a defense? And I'll bring in Mr. Ikenga into the conversation now. Talk to us about that being maybe a possible defense and your general analysis of Siminalayi Fubara's time in office.
Okay, quickly. I'd also like to remind the presenters as well that while quoting decisions of courts on what is in Rivers State, you should not sidestep Justice Omotosho's judgment, which clearly stated that House of Assembly under Right Honorable Martin Zamewule is a duly constituted House of Assembly, and therefore no one should declare their seat vacant and no one should attempt to conduct an election in replacement of these persons. That is the status where we are. And that matter, the Court of Appeal has not taken a position on it. So that is also a standard. And the Federal High Court in that matter. But I'm surprised that we are largely concentrating on a state high court under Q, which also did sit on appeal on a federal high court's decision under Justice Omotosho. Be that as it may, I'd like to tell you that Governor Sim Fubara cannot claim to have lost control or to have been distracted, because he had also said so when we did say that he had become distracted by his interest in polarizing the state, his interest in committing more resources to Thanksgiving at the 23 local government areas, and then his divisive rhetorics, and then his war against the state assembly and the local government elections are things that had distracted him. But to say that he just started governance is laughable, because he was sworn in the same day his colleagues were sworn in, and they have made tremendous achievements and remarks. So because he has chosen to continue to enhance ethnic disharmony in Rivers State, which of course touches on the security of the state and development as well. So we will always tell you the truth, and the truth is that the 3 local governments wherein you are saying that you saw some youths are protesting are they are from the Ijaw ethnic group where he comes from. His ethnic group that he tries to use to intimidate others. Outside that, go to other, out of 23 LGAs, 3 are the ones that are protesting, so to speak. And also we have members who are there who are very law-abiding, like my colleague here said. But theirs is always to continue to create crisis in Rivers State to ensure that they intimidate people. You heard, I'm sure you have seen a video that has gone viral, where one of his supporters said he had come back from the creek, that he's willing to kill anybody that stands on their way. They're willing to destroy everybody. They're willing to take over everything. I'm sure you have seen the viral video. So these are the issues we are having in Rivers State. We need peace, we need cooperation, we need development in our state. And the governor is the one that ought to midwife all this. But he's looking the other way because his interest is in trying to foment problem and create division in Rivers State.
All right, let me quickly speak with Mr. Odu. Just to clarify, what is the latest ruling or the last ruling by the appeal court concerning the Rivers State lawmakers, including Martin Amaule?
The last ruling is for everybody to maintain status quo, and then secondly, their process were allowed to be filed their opponents of the lawmakers were of the view that the matter should be struck out, but the judge, in his wisdom, accepted that the House of Assembly members should file their processes, and then so to speak, for now, we're expecting that status quo should really be.
And what exactly, what is status quo in Rivers State as a stand? Because there was a court ruling that disqualified these, lawmakers from being members of the House of Assembly. They, of course, pushed forward to the appeal court. The appeal court ruling then asked that they maintain status quo pending determination of the appeal. And of course, let me just quickly share what the news report says. It says Justice Barker further rejected their request to restrain Governor Fubara's back lawmakers from parading themselves as members of the State House of Assembly. It says the appellate court rejected the request by Martin Amaule and his allies to set aside the trial court's order restraining them from parading themselves as members of the State House of Assembly. So are we having a little confusion as to what exactly status quo is here?
Okay, let me explain to you. First and foremost, the judge you just quoted said that to grant that request will mean to decide even before the matter is looked into. And then the status quo we're talking about now is a situation where the other 3 lawmakers went to the lower court to get Martin Amaule and the 27 others restrained from parading themselves as members of the House of Assembly. In that ruling, there was an order. The order stated that they should stop parading themselves, and the order is what they are appealing. And I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that if anybody who wins an election is being challenged by the order, even if the lower court takes a decision, it still does not transfer power to the appellant. And then secondly, the lower court has not even taken a decision. What it did was an order. An order is, don't do this pending when we will determine this case. It does not transfer in any means the right for the three lawmakers on the side of the governor to sit. And then, like my colleague there pointed out, there is Justice Omoto Shaw's ruling judgment that stated the fact that Martins Amewule and co should be seen as the true lawmakers.
All right.
Then Martins Amewule should not be denied their funds. So, like I said, status quo is the fact that Okojombo never existed, because what they only got was an order, and that order is being challenged. So the power goes back to the sitting house, which is Martins Amewule.
Okay, so we of course have to continue this conversation, because I'm sure that now that the governor has given his order that they be taking over, the local governments be taking over, we want to see how this will eventually play out, what the next steps will be, and we'd love to have you join us again. Thank you very much, Honorable Collins Odu and Mr. Chibike Ikenga. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
All
right. This, of course, is still Breakfast Central. Many conversations to have this morning, and we'll be moving away from River State to our next story this morning. But before then, we'll go on a very quick break.
Welcome once again. Now, gunmen have reportedly abducted Christian Ike, a reverend father at St. Matthew's Catholic Church in Ajali Parish, Orumba North, local government area of Anambra State. This is coming after 1 month after Basil Chukwemeka, another Catholic priest, was kidnapped by suspected gunmen at Umpo Junction near Onitsha in Anambra State.
On Sunday, gunmen attacked the Ogbaru local government area secretariat in the Atani area of Anambra State. And our police spokesperson in Anambra, Tochukwu Ikenga, said vigilantes repelled the gunmen before the response team arrived. It has become a concern given the recent spate of insecurity in the state. This morning we're joined by the CEO, PR24 Nigeria, and consultant on security matters, Adekoya Oyekachi. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and good morning to the viewers.
I mean, this is an unfortunate situation or reports that we're seeing so far. But would you say that we currently, where we are, that we're still prioritizing, the current administration is still prioritizing insecurity as it should? Or would you say that so far the current economic turbulence has overtaken the conversations on insecurity, or the priority that insecurity should have?
I would answer you in the words of Professor Chukwuma Soludo at the just concluded platform event by asking you who sent you to me. Probably tell them you did not see me. Like I'd always said, the issues of insecurity are hydra-headed. They are beyond a single administration. We have a systemic design problem. And what we rather do is to paint over the problem. And it becomes very tiring for people like myself to keep, sounding almost like a broken record on the issues. The issues are beyond one administration. And yes, I agree that the bulk of the matters of insecurity stops at the desk of the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And up until this time, we cannot hold any other person responsible other than the man sitting there in Aso Rock. So if your question is government failing because of other macroeconomic issues, I would say no. This administration is failing because I sense, again, that the government in power has been hijacked by a militaristic thinking and some set of assumptions that has plagued this country since around the 1970s, just about when we finished the Civil War. So that's the problem here, that we take a unitaristic approach. We keep taking advice from retired military general or serving general. The military is not best or better suited for public safety or public order. So we keep making the same mistakes over and over again. So no, it's not the macroeconomic issues that are overshadowing the security problems that we have. The security problems we have are entrenched, they are hydra-headed, they are influenced by external factors as they are influenced by internal factors. But the way we are structured is the greater problem. And that's why government in, government out, security chief in, security chief out, the problems are there and they remain. So that's my assessment.
Well, I mean, you would expect, that maybe, or maybe I should ask, from what you've seen so far, has there been any change in attitude towards addressing these issues? Is there any new way of thinking? Is there any, redirection of efforts towards addressing these issues? Or do you think that where we are now is that we've just accepted that this is the way that things are across Nigeria, and anybody could be attacked or kidnapped in any part of the country, and well, this is where we are?
Well, you're asking if I have seen anything to suggest a change. I go back to my initial statement that there's a seeming hijack by a think tank that assumes that they know all about security. For example, you journalists also make the mistakes. If you have subject on security you want to talk about, you will first call a retired major general serving maybe general, because the term general is very high sounding. We have non-combatant generals, we have combatant generals, we have generals who are in the intelligence corps, signals corps, engineering corps, finance corps. That doesn't make them subject matter experts when it comes to issues of security. The problems we're dealing with here is public safety. And public safety, drawing from a 2019 strategy document that we have that says that human security would be the basis upon which we do security, national security going forward in Nigeria. But the people who themselves wrote the document perhaps don't understand fully the rigors that involves in implementing that strategy, and how that the issues of security don't just lie only with the security chiefs themselves, but it's an all of society problem, all of government problem. It's a constitutional problem, as it is also a political problem. So if you're asking if we have seen any change, no, we have not seen any change, because the assumption that is held by all of society is still the same thing, that the president is ultimately responsible for security because the constitution enthrones him that power. It's a constitutional problem. It's a society problem because the governors themselves seek to absolve themselves of the responsibility of being the chief security officer of their state. They would then fall back to the constitution. But if they want to mobilize and flex political power in their states, they can. Case in point, you can look at what's happening between erstwhile governor of Rivers State and current governor of Rivers State to know how powerful the governors are. So there is nothing that has changed yet. It's again the same sing-song we have over and over again. Nothing has changed in thinking. Nothing has changed in approach. We now have an NSA who some of us campaigned for. We campaigned for a civilian NSA because we wanted to separate the military from dictating the terms of how we do national security, to having a policy-driven approach to national security. But seemingly, I'm not sure what the focus of this current NSA is, but he seems to be lost at some point, not being clear-minded or clear-headed as to what he wants to do. The NSA basically is a coordinating officer of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on matters of intelligence. His domain of authority, primarily per the Constitution, is limited to supervising the DSS, the NIA, and I think the DII, just the major intelligence agencies, and advising an advisor to the president, not someone who has command, to the point that he's dictating to the military what to do or what not to do, dictating to paramilitary agencies what to wear or what not to wear, delving into matters of cybersecurity. So we've now over-cocooned the NSA in too many things that goes beyond the remit of policy and advice, which the office of the NSA should be doing. So there are a number of structural problems, really. So no new thinking. My answer, sorry for the lengthy rant.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that.
We tire a bit of the same talk. It's all talk. We're all in a rocking chair, applying force, no motion.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that, and of course, keep in mind that we also have been hearing regular reports of, people being killed in northern Nigeria, about 50 here, 30 here, and kidnappings, of course, still going on in those parts, so obviously there's not very much that has been improved, but, talk about it on the requirements that you would expect from the policing itself, without bringing in the army now. Is there any requirements or any, I don't know, is there something else that the Nigerian police force itself could do at this point that maybe would have assisted the situation?
No, nothing else. Asking the police to do more than what they are doing is us being very uncharitable and unfair to the police. The police, as currently constituted, we are already beating a dead horse. This Nigerian police that we have, as is, cannot do beyond what they are doing. They are giving their blood, their liver, their kidney. They are giving their all. The policemen are just products of improvisation, and the policing we have is a product of improvisation. A case where we cannot fully operationally run the 1,400 and something divisions we have across the country. Logistics is everything in policing or even in security. You cannot fuel the vehicles, you cannot maintain the vehicles, you cannot maintain the office space, you cannot provide stationaries, you can't run the stations that we have. How then do you expect them to do policing? There are welfare issues of the policing, there are operational challenges. You have what they claim now about 370,000. We've always held that it's about 300,000. Something thousand policemen. Half of them are statutorily also protecting private interests, because this private interest is what drives and fuels the GDP of the Nigerian economy.
Yeah.
So the police are challenged. What more can they do? What we need in this case is a state police.
Yeah, well, I mean, that would require some level of constitutional amendment, that would maybe take the next,
which the governors themselves do not want to do. Recall that then President Buhari attempted to rework, to give powers to the governors. The governors, through their House of Assembly, rejected the state police on the claim, some of them, that they cannot pay for state police. As they're also claiming now that they cannot
All right,
pay
quickly,
the minimum
in 30
wage.
seconds, Mr. Mikachi, in 30 seconds, please, because we need to wrap up. Talk about it from the Anambra State perspective or from the southeastern perspective. What does your crystal ball show you as to what the situation is in the southeast?
The situation in Southeast is improving. It's not yet Uhuru. The governors have shown, I mean, look at the case of Apia, for example. That incident occurred. There's a 25 million bounty put out there for the assailants. The Anambra State governor has been very clear-minded, very firm on the fact that without security, you cannot have prosperity and development. So I think the political language is changing. The people themselves are tired, though there is the emotive leaning towards the ideals of Biafra. But listen, people's livelihood cannot continually be threatened and people live in fear constantly. So I think that the political economy is tiring of some of the excesses of some of these actors. So if that continues with the right policies in place and the rest, and there may just be a convergence of interest to with that these issues are better dealt with. Sorry.
All right, Mr. Nkachi Adekola, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing having more conversations with you. Hopefully, better ones this time when we look at the insecurity state in Nigeria.
May I be as hopeful as you are.
All right, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Let's take you through a recap of the conversations we've had on the show this morning. Tension in Rivers over local government chairman's tenure extension. We had Mr. Kinga and Honorable Collins Odu join us, and both were of the view that the governor has acted out of order. And FCT residents expressed divergent views on free trade service. And unknown gunmen abduct Catholic priest in parishioner in Anambra. It's a conversation we just concluded. We're joined by Nkachi Adekola to explain what the situation of insecurity is in the country. Let's look at what's coming up next on Breakfast Central.
Coming up next, Tinubu inherited a dead economy. Bayo Nanuga spills, and also newspaper front pages. What are the major stories making headlines across Nigeria this morning? We'll be sharing with you, and also what Nigerians are saying
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Let's find out what the big stories making the headlines today are. We'll be delving into the conversation this morning and analyzing the story with the publisher of the Niche newspaper, Ikechukwu Amechi, and with you as well. Good morning, Mr. Amechi. Thank you very much for joining us.
Oliver, always my pleasure.
Always a pleasure to have you. And you also will be a part of the conversation as we have the numbers that you can call scrolling on the screen. So please do well to call. Now let's get into the papers this morning and see what the front pages of the newspapers are saying. Our first paper this morning is the Vanguard newspaper. Nigeria struggle as high drug prices fuel health crisis. Rhyming scheme. We have out-of-pocket payments on the increase, patient care threatened, rising costs forced resort to herbal remedies, traditional healers, worry over unpredictable effectiveness of traditional medicine. Very interesting because, this was what was even highlighted as well in the New York Times article. Over 2,700 pilgrims suffer heat stroke, exhaustion, as weather hits 48 degrees Celsius. And then we have in the world of sports, Finidi, NFF acts dangles over Osimhen, opens disciplinary proceedings against him. At the top of the paper, Nigeria's oil output rises to 1.46 MB PD, not 1.7. Okay, so a federal government had a claim about what the million barrels per day were, but it would seem that that's not what the reality is. Reverse youths occupy local government headquarters as chairman's tenure expires. Tension in prisons over rising food inflation. Edo gubernatorial elections, I'll reenact Oshiomhale's infrastructure revolution, says Okpebolo. And kidnap families of Lebanese nationals, rebuff police intervention. Local government autonomy will await Supreme Court's decision, says Senate. You really blame the family of the Lebanese nationals for rebuffing the police intervention at this case. This, of course, I'm believing is in reaction to the kidnap of the Fuani family.
That's a story that we didn't really even pay a lot of attention to.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a huge stain, on Nigeria's image.
Well, it is because it happened in Lagos. But then the issue of kidnap is a daily occurrence in Nigeria now. That may explain why, if you hear in a country where 200 and something students are adopted and they disappear into thin air, adoption of the MD of Fuani and the 3 Lebanese nationals. I was not surprised it didn't make the kind of headlines it should have made. In fact, the only thing that made it prominent was that it happened in Lagos and the circumstances under which it happened. But that fits into the same narrative we're talking about, insecurity. And if Lagos, that is deemed as the safest state so far, in fact, even safer than the Federal Capital Territory, if we are beginning to see this kind of brazen adoptions, then there is trouble. And that may also explain why it is being played down. I think deliberately it is being played down because if there is a panic in Lagos, of all places, it's going to be a very sad commentary on where we are, which is a very bad place. And considering that even this kidnap took place when the president, I think he's still in Lagos, that he's gone to South Africa, but considering the fact that this kidnap took place when the president is in town with the added security cordon that entails, then we are in real trouble. We are getting there. And it is also good that it is happening in Lagos and it happened when the president is here, so that when people talk about insecurity, it's not a far-flung thing. It's not a Sokoto, Meduguri thing.
Katsina.
And then now, seeing that the families are rebuffing the intervention of the police, is that not also a reflection on the on the state of our insecurity and the fact that there is a huge distrust between, for people to be able to say, oh, if this happens, the police, they
the Fuani group has been here for many, many years, so I'm sure they understand Nigerian police well enough.
The guys who pay the ransom I think they said it is $1.2 million. That's what the kidnappers are asking for. They will pay the ransom. They won't bother themselves with the police. And I will tell you, I don't want to go there, but when my mom was kidnapped, I was advised to go pay the ransom. So they will pay. So they know what they're talking about. It's not a question of what police is doing or what police is not doing. I'm not saying that police is part of the kidnapping syndicate. But what I'm saying is that, look, in situations like this, if your loved ones are taken, what comes first to you is to rescue them alive. And the earlier that is done, the better. Because, look, these guys are with people who are under the influence of drugs. And anything can happen. Maybe not deliberately, but by accident. Because the most difficult people you can deal with are people who are under the influence of of drugs.
All right. We need to move to the Tribune, but let's speak with Mohammed. Good morning, Mohammed.
Morning.
Mohammed, good morning. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Quickly, go ahead.
When somebody is talking about security, without eating, nobody in this life that you know it today, you know it tomorrow, that we balance. Nobody can tackle Nigeria security. It can never possible when hungry is today. You can nobody rehabilitate that somebody go hungry. Stomach, nobody can stop stomach. So when somebody is hungry, he can do anything to eat. So when somebody is talking about police and security, nobody. When food is day, not everybody plan to buy motor to build a house. So, but feeding is very important. And secondly, when we are talking about our leader, INEC and George is very important people that destroy this country. See what happened in Abuja State. When they do the election, when they won't bribe the return officer, the woman reject the money. The woman will not collect the money. See the Abuja State now. Abuja State work is done well there because of INEC. They know when they try to link the election, they cannot link the election. So Abuja is work well. But now we are seeing the trouble that they. If we elect good leader, trouble no good for this country like this. We are talking about security. Who import gun? The politician. Now politician import gun to Nigeria. The Fulani that we are talking, the people they are holding gun, they cannot write, they cannot speak. How manage the gun enter their hand? Do you know how much AK-47, AK-49? Do you know how much they are selling? Where get the money from? Now politician give.
All right. Thanks a lot. Let's quickly go to the Tribune. I think he did make some interesting points there. The Nigerian Tribune comes up next. Interesting stories there. Says tension in Rivers over control of local government council as tenure of chairman expires. It says youth storm local government secretariat, ask chairman to vacate office. Police warn troublemakers. And also, Obasanjo visits Tinubu's wife in Lagos. We can also find at the top of the screen, cholera, Nigeria must prevent the spread to schools, says UNICEF. Nigeria's inflation ranks highest among African countries in May. Board appointment, APC members reject Abia nominees, writes Tinubu. Obi kicks against proposed purchase of presidential aircraft. And also, Nigerian pilgrim dies of heat stroke on Arafat Day. Two other stories, we can bring in our guest again. Hoodlums attack Plateau board officials, burn houses and 10 vehicles. And also, Algon seeks 4-year tenure for local government officials. Let's start with, I think you could quickly speak on the River State issues again, and then the presidential aircraft.
What the crisis in Rivers, which is unending, has to do, the impunity in this system that some people call democracy rankles because it's a mess. And this is about the only country where we have this kind of nonsense now playing out. Look, the tenure of Rivers State local government officials is 3 years. That tenure expired yesterday, midnight yesterday. Now, the guys are saying that the State House of Assembly gave them an extension of 6 months. It's like now saying that come May 29th, 2027, President Bola Tinubu is saying that he won't vacate office because the National Assembly extended his tenure by another 6 months. Does it make sense? But that's the level of impunity that we have in this country. And look, we must continue calling out. We must continue calling out the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory because he is behind this level of impunity that is taking place in Rivers State. And if they don't take their time and plunge that state into avoidable crisis, because there's no need for all this nonsense. What they are trying to do is to prevent Nfubara from going the route which all of them
have been going, yes,
have traveled, which is appointing caretaker committee to take charge of the 23 local governments until the next election is conducted. But for crying out loud, how can we continue to allow some individuals this kind of leverage, impunity, that makes them to play God in our so-called democracy? The youth have taken over about 2 or 3 local governments secretariats. Some other local government chairmen or former local government chairmen, because their tenure has expired, are threatening that anybody who comes around, that they will deal with the person.
So just to clarify, the State House of Assembly doesn't have the right to extend their tenure, by 6 months. And this is what Martin Amawule did.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
Yeah.
And don't forget that the Martin Amawule House technically no longer
legally recognized. Yeah, it doesn't exist.
Exists.
I mean, the arguments for and against that are quite a number, but then 2 wrongs do not make a right. Whilst there is logic to the fact that, we should not, there shouldn't be an attempt to elongate the duration of the tenure of the local government. What role also, when we look at the role of conducting elections, does the governor of the state have some fault to bear in this situation, why the elections have not yet been conducted?
I'm not making excuses for Fubara, but the truth of the matter is that this guy's tenure has expired. The issue of local government elections and autonomy and all that is the issue that is before the Supreme Court right now. They have said they will give judgment. We hope that that judgment comes sooner than later, so that we run away from all these things. Governors are playing golf, taking the laws into their hands. But we have to blame the 1999 Constitution for all the crisis we have at the local government level. In one instance, the Constitution is saying that the local government is the 3rd tier of government. In other words, we have 3 tiers of government. But in the same Constitution, we have provisions that is giving the state governments the decision to interpret that it is the State Houses of Assembly that makes the laws that governs the operations of
the local government.
Yeah. So there is that confusion, which I hope the Supreme Court will rule on.
Yeah. All right.
Once and for all. But the truth of the matter is that the tenure of this former local government chairman expired
at midnight
yesterday.
And I'm sure that this is what the Attorney General of the Federation was trying to correct when he's taking the 36 state governors to court and saying that they should stop allocation of
caretaker committees.
Yeah,
to
but
handle
also
local
I
government affairs.
think it would then say that it makes sense that if the caretaker committee is established, that they do not give allocation, any form of allocation for that local government until proper elections have been conducted.
Yeah, well, quickly speak about the presidential aircraft. Peter Obi speaks against it.
I read Peter Obi's letter yesterday, which of course he posted on his X handle. If you ask me, I think that's the most far-reaching letter that Obi has written in recent times. Well-reasoned, well-argued. Look, we are in a country where the government is saying that they can't even pay the minimum wage proposed by the
organized labor.
Yet, we are here, and the government every day is increasing the cost of governance. We're coming from the same government giving 50 billion to subsidize those going on pilgrimage, on Hajj. The other day, the vice president had a brand new mansion, 22 billion or whatever. And they are proposing to buy aircraft, not one. They said they're going to buy one for the president and going to buy one for the vice president. Don't forget, when Buhari came into office, part of the promise that he made, and which is the same deceit of the APC government, is that they will sell some of the aircraft. In fact, they advertised it. None was sold. Now the president is saying that he's going to buy more aircraft in a presidential fleet in an economy that has dropped from being the biggest economy in Africa to the fourth. We are not behind South Africa, we are behind Egypt. We are even behind Angola. We're only struggling to see if we could stay with a country like Ethiopia. We are a country that just a few years ago, we had GDP of $500 billion. Now it is struggling around $250 billion. Yet, all we do every day is to increase the cost of governance, is to ensure that those who are in power are proving to us, in real sense, that it is their turn. Because this is what all this is all about. Everybody was making noise over the Salah, sacrifice, preaching sacrifice. The people have to sacrifice. What are the leaders sacrificing? President Tinubu has private jet. If we are talking about sacrifice, can he not turn his private jet and at least start using it as part of the sacrifice he's making for the country? They are going to buy private, and they will buy it because they said, in fact, Bayo Onanuga, who has taken it upon himself to continue insulting people instead of doing the explanations that are needed, something that ought to be beneath him.
Yeah, we need to go. Once again, another 30 minutes of going through Nigeria's newspapers without any happy stories, as we do every day. Thank you very much, Ikechukwu Amechi, for coming. Of course, for stopping by and for sharing your thoughts on these stories.
Also, thanks, but I think it is high time Nigerians start taking what is happening in this democracy serious. Otherwise, the leaders will continue to take us for granted and will continue to be in this mess. Continue to talk about the same things every day.
Very true. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we continue conversations this morning on Breakfast Central. Stay with us. On the 11th of June 2024, the New York Times released a featured story titled
Nigeria confronts its worst economic crisis in a generation. Now, this story was written by Ruth McLean and Ismail Awal, and it detailed the current living reality of many Nigerians. There's an excerpt from the feature that I'm about to quote. It says, Nigeria's more than 200 million citizens are skilled at managing in tough circumstances without the services states usually provide. They generate their own electricity and source their own water. They take up arms and defend their communities when the armed forces cannot. They negotiate with kidnappers when family members are abducted. But right now, their resourcefulness is being stretched to the limit, quote close. The article shared personal stories of a man who sold his car when fuel subsidy was removed, a hospital worker who reads the label on medicines with a torchlight on his phone because he's unable to power the generator. The people who suffer from hypocalcemia caused by lack of calcium because they cannot afford the foods that will give them calcium, even as basic as milk. The people who lost their life as a result of the stampede when they were trying to queue to get rice to eat. The stories were heart-wrenching, to put it mildly. And many would say that this is a stark reflection of the reality of many Nigerians. Now, in response to this story, the special advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, said that the feature reflected the typical predetermined, reductionist, derogatory, and denigrating way that foreign media establishments have reported on African countries for several decades. He further added that Nigeria is not the only country in the world facing a rising cost of living crisis. The USA, too, is contending with similar crisis, with families finding it hard to make ends meet. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen raised this concern recently. Europe is similarly in the throes of a cost of living crisis. As those countries are trying to confront the problem, the Tinubu administration is also working hard to overturn the economic problems in Nigeria. Mr. Onanuga also said that, I quote, President Tinubu did not create the economic problems Nigeria faces today. He inherited them. Nigerians have not liked this, and they have reacted to his response. This is what Nigerians are saying on X. Our first tweet is from Mazi Nathan, who says, inherited poor economy, yet Tinubu gave his vice 21 billion to renovate his house, budgeted 1 billion for his sitting allowance, budgeted 10 billion for himself, Shetima's computers, budgeted 2.2 trillion naira National Assembly padded projects, budgeted 6 billion for Reps car park off the road. Ew. The next one is from Finplan Kaluaja. He says, the tabloids guy's response to New York Times. He then quotes the response. He says, President Tinubu did not create the economic problem Nigeria faces today. He inherited them. He quotes again, Tinubu inherited a dead economy. Another one, Nigeria is not the country in the world, is not the only country in the world facing a rising cost of living crisis. And according to him, he says he did not counter a single point that the New York Times raised. Our next tweet is from Bash Selly, and Bash Selly says, in fact, Bash Selly went ahead to tag President Tinubu, official BAT. Dead economy doesn't buy SUVs with reckless abandon. Dead economy doesn't build castles for VP. Dead economy doesn't pad budget with trillions. Dead economy doesn't buy yacht. Dead economy doesn't buy new jets for Tinubu and Shetima. Dead economy doesn't pay 90 billion naira for Hajj. The next tweet is from Malachi Odo II, who says, APC told us that Nigeria would have collapsed if Buhari didn't win in 2015. 8 years later, the same people are telling us that Tinubu inherited a dead economy and that the man is performing surgery to resuscitate the economy. And there was a shade there, Dr. Anu. How many of you remember Dr. Anu? If you don't, I'm sorry. If you know, you know. The next tweet is from Ayemo Juba, who says, wasn't Tinubu the one who boasted during the campaigns that he will build on Buhari's dead economy? Or did we force it on him? The final tweet is from Tunde Alobe, who says, Tinubu didn't inherit a dead economy. He inherited an economy on life support of fuel subsidy and subsidized exchange rate. He, however, decided to remove the life support without proper planning, and this is the cause of the pains and the economic crisis Nigerians are currently facing. It's been really turbulent times. Lots of Nigerians reacting to this. They're not happy by, about what Bayo Onanuga has said, and they're not comfortable with the way that Nigerians have been living. It's the public holidays, celebrating Salah, and presidency had asked us to sacrifice. Reminds me of the song by Elton John, Sacrifice, but for how long? Are the government officials themselves sacrificing? Anyway, these are what Nigerians are saying. We'll take more tweets. Remember that you can always react to any of these stories and tweet at us at News Central TV. We'll go on a break. It's back to the conversations here on Breakfast Central.
Welcome once again to Breakfast Central. The presidency has responded to a recent New York Times report criticizing the Nigerian economy as facing the worst trajectory in a generation. Special advisor to the president on information and strategy, Bola Tinubu, argued that the report reflected a biased and derogatory perspective typical of foreign media's coverage of African stories.
Onanuga noted that the report unfairly blamed the new administration for the inflationary challenges of the past year without acknowledging positive aspects of the economy and ongoing ameliorative policies. He said that Tinubu did not create the current economic problems but inherited them, describing the economy as bleeding and in urgent need of intervention to avoid a crisis similar to those in Zimbabwe and Venezuela. That is our conversation this morning.
And joining us this morning is Segun Sopitan, who, of course, will be letting us know if the New York Times was talking rubbish or
nonsense, or it was, the presidency that is, out of order.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for joining us.
How derogatory was the New York Times report on Nigeria's economy?
Well, I mean, anything that anybody says, whether it's the New York Times or you, that does not sing Hosanna, Hallelujah, and Kumbaya to the actions of politicians, it's derogatory. And I think that's what we're seeing. It's the typical response system of most government officials. And it didn't start with these guys. And if Nigerians don't do something about it, won't end with them. There's nothing derogatory about what the New York Times has said. They've simply told us what the truth is. And it's quite, I don't even know whether to say it's disturbing anymore, because this is the trend, How can Mr. Onanuga claim that this is derogatory? How can he not know that these are just simple truths? The reality that Nigerians are facing today is what the New York Times chronicled. Yeah. So there's nothing derogatory about it, and the data is out there. The economic data, the macroeconomic data, the microeconomic data. It's all out there, including the most recent inflation report. The earlier our government officials learned to deal with public issues with candor, the faster they will be able to galvanize the support of the citizens. I think one of the most annoying things for most Nigerians is the fact that politicians just go on as if they live in a different universe, like they live in a different reality. It makes people angry, and that anger can blow over.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that was the premise on which we started today's show, talking about the disconnect between politicians and Nigerians. I mean, if you read the article, so many heart-wrenching is the easiest way I can put it, reports of people's real-life experiences, right, being detailed in that report. Mm-hmm. Would you say that from the way the government is carrying on, that it's as a result of the fact that they're totally disconnected, they're not aware, very much because they're not in the shoes of the people? Or would you say it's because they don't care at all, that do you understand, but they just do not care?
Yeah, I think they know. Somewhere, because they used to live, they're one of us. Let's be, real about it. Majority of them got their lives transformed when they got political appointments or political, they were elected into office. Before that, they lived amongst us, in the same estates that we all live in, on the same streets that we live in. They know what people are going through based on their own previous experience. But the moment they get into government, they move into a bubble, and they're shielded from those realities. And some of them, because of their personal hubris, tend to forget. I don't know if it's deliberate, amnesia, but they tend to forget, and that's why you find them speaking with such arrogance and all of that. And I think that's why a lot of people have talked about perhaps one of the solutions to this problem is for us to fix our system of governance, our governance models. In other parts of the world, public officials use public facilities. They travel on the same trains, they ride on the same roads, they don't fly private jets. There are even countries who do not have private jets. Their leaders fly commercial flights. I think that maybe we need to seriously consider moving back in that direction, because as it stands today, these guys just, the reality is that they live in a different universe.
Yeah, I mean, before you can convince them to, you know, to use public infrastructure and facilities, it needs to exist.
It needs to be built.
Exactly. But I want to, you know, get your reaction to Bayo Ononuga saying that, you know, they inherited a dead economy. You know, I mean, when they were coming into office, it wasn't a dead economy. You know, they were going to build on, you know, the wins of the former administration. So how dead was Nigeria's economy when they got in? You know, and is that a good enough excuse to, as you know, a response to the New York Times article?
I think it's a very disingenuous and, with all due respect and apologies to whoever might be offended, very unintelligent response. You know, it's extremely unintelligent, because the data and the statistics says the exact opposite. The economy was not dead. The economy had problems, and those problems were fundamental. For example, there were fiscal imbalances as a result of, you know, for example, the Ways and Means issue, 23 trillion naira being printed and creating a money supply glut, and so many other issues. We were already struggling with inflation. You know, we're struggling with a multiplicity of exchange rates, as was pursued by the Emefiele CBN. You know, those were serious problems that needed to be dealt with. But to say that the economy was dead is outrightly ridiculous. The economy was nowhere near dead. The economy was far better than it is right now. It was far better. The numbers say so. Inflation rate, when this administration came on board, was around 23%. It's 33.69 now. It's grown 11% in just 1 year. You know, that's a gallop. If it continues at that rate, we will hit 50% in another year. That's how terrible our situation is. How can they say the economy was dead? The exchange rate at that time, official exchange rate was 461 naira to the dollar. Parallel market rate was 700. Parallel market today is 1,005. That's more than 100% increase. How can he say that the economy was dead? And you know, the sad part of it is, this is the exact same thing that President Muhammadu Buhari did, you know, claiming that he inherited a dead economy from the Jonathan administration. And everything, all of the incompetence that we saw from Buhari was the fault of Jonathan. And we brought Buhari on, we as Nigeria, you know, whatever anybody might feel about the outcome of that election, Nigeria brought Buhari on board to solve those problems. He exacerbated them. He made them worse. And then the same person that brought Buhari to us and told us that this was the solution is now president and is now saying that that same Buhari gave him a dead economy. I mean, it's really, it flies in the face of logic and reason. You know, the things that these politicians cook up. I think that at some point somebody needs to tell these guys to shut up and get real. We can't continue to listen to loads of nonsense, with all due respect and apologies again, you know, from these guys, and just soak it up. I think that maybe when they send, especially when they sit in media conferences,
right,
I think, you know, people need to stand up to them and say, no, sir, what you're saying is not correct. You know, we can't continue this way.
What is the hope of Nigerians right now? I mean, you read the article, you saw the pleas for help. There are people who go to radio stations. There's a particular radio station in the north where people would go and drop their pleas for help, and the radio presenter will pick 3, and one willing Nigerian will, you know, help to pay the bill. So it's Nigerians paying for their health care, paying for everything, and being their own government. What is the hope of the average Nigerian?
I think that the average Nigerian has got to, at some point, acknowledge the fact that it's not going to work until he says it has to work. We are too docile. You know, I mean, look, even the New York Times article talked about the resilience of Nigerians and how it's now being stretched to breaking point. And I think we really are at that point. Yeah. When you get to a point where people can no longer buy gari, you know, gari is supposed to be poor man's food. I grew up knowing that as a student, when you are broke, flat dead broke, it's gari. Yeah. When you want to talk about how you suffered to build something, say, I drank gari to buy this car. Yeah. Now you can't drink gari anymore. It's no longer poor man's food. The poor man, you know, people are now talking about buying biscuits like, you know, you buy
People are
a
lucky
100
to have
naira
one
biscuit.
meal a day.
Yeah, you just buy a 100 naira pack of biscuits. The slices in the biscuit pack are now really tiny. The manufacturers have reduced their sizes ridiculously. So you buy that one pack, 100 naira, that has four slices of biscuits, and then you share with your children.
Yeah,
that's what people are doing now. And then, you know, the politicians are telling us that they inherited the dead economy. Who removed subsidy? Who floated the naira?
Yeah,
can you really say you were not aware of what you were
doing? We need to go. But the thing is,
that.
you know, he in his, you know, statement to the New York Times, he of course was giving excuses as to why these things happened, about how, you know, Nigeria was spending so much money funding subsidy, and of course, you know, defending naira and all of that. But one thing that I found very, very, very embarrassing that he said was, the exchange rate is now below 1,500. He stated that it was almost hitting 1,900, and now it's currently about 1,005, and that, you know, if we continue to work, you know, it might get to about 1,200. These people are forgetting that they met this exchange at 218 naira. I mean, the time that they were calling for Goodluck Jonathan to be kicked out of power, the exchange rate was about 200 naira back then. He's then saying that they will work hard to bring that to 1,200 naira. It's embarrassing.
I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, you know, and I think that we need to continue to, you know, call them out and let them know that we're on to them. They can't gaslight us. We need things to work in this country.
Absolutely.
And they have to start doing that.
Segun Sopiton, thank you very much for joining us. It's time for us to say goodbye. Thank you for joining us all through the show this morning. And of course, be with us same time tomorrow morning on Breakfast Central. I am Osaogi Ogbonwa.
And I am Olive MODLC tomorrow. Do stay well.